National Center for Polar and Ocean Research is an autonomous institute under Ministry of Earth Sciences, Government of India. Actually, this is one of the autonomous institute under Ministry as mainly dealing with the polar research and ocean research. In the polar, we are considering about 3 poles, that means Antarctic, Arctic and Himalaya, including the Southern Ocean, we are considering as a polar science. Whereas in the ocean science, we are trying to do some of the research pertaining to harvesting non-living resources in the Indian Ocean.
The National Center for Antarctic and Ocean Research is India's premier research and development institution, solely responsible for the country's research activities in the polar and southern ocean realms.
NCOR, National Center for Antarctic and Ocean Research, was established in 1998 under the aegis of Department of Ocean Development, which has now grown into a Ministry of Earth Sciences. The basic purpose of creating this organization was to carry out research in the polar regions. We started with the Antarctic expedition in 1982, and then in Southern Ocean regions, Arctic and Himalayas, which is known as Third Pole.
The Research Institute has enabled leading interdisciplinary research that has changed our understanding of the Earth. With a research mandate that is quite challenging, the Centre is designated as the nodal organization for the coordination and implementation of the Indian Antarctic, Arctic, Himalayan and ocean research programs.
So this all polar research is mainly specific to understand the climate issues. What is the things are happening in the climate? So main our purpose is in the changing climate scenario, what is the effect is happening, and also what was happened earlier and what will happen in future. So that is our main objective of study of polar research. In the ocean science, as I mentioned, we are looking at some of the non-living resources, hydrothermal and polymetallic nodules and other mineral resources available in the ocean. So we are trying to harvest the minerals from the ocean, and also we are also trying to find out our exclusive economic zone, how much it is there and whether we have, what are the resources available, especially in the non-living resources available in the oceans. So these are the broad areas we are working in the polar and ocean. Apart from that, some of the curiosity driven questions, such as some of the geoscientific area, there is some geoid low in the Indian Ocean, why it is happening, that geoid low, and also we drill in the ocean depth up to few kilometers and try to understand the past history about the monsoon and all other things. So these are some of the curiosity driven questions we want to address. So these are the main areas where NCPOR is working on it.
This identified 75,000 square kilometers area in the central Indian Ocean has more than 365 million tons of nodules. Besides, the recently identified first-generation mining site for nodules has an intrinsic value of about 50,000 million US, which is the combined value of manganese, nickel, copper and cobalt in these deposits at today's metal prices. This is a backup when land resources get exhausted or metal prices shoot up or political developments start dictating urgency to harness deep-sea wealth. Besides carrying out detailed resource evaluation and identifying the first-generation mine site, India has also conducted experimental mining at more than 5 kilometers of water depth. This is necessary to assess the potential environmental impacts as well as collecting multidisciplinary baseline data. Without baseline data, developing technologies for exploitation of these minerals is impossible. CSIR laboratories such as National Metallurgical Laboratory, Jamshedpur, and Institute of Minerals and Materials Technology, Bhubaneswar, have played a key role in developing extraction processes of polymetallic nodules. Scientifically designed exploration has helped in developing a mining system for these resources. Environmental Impact Assessment EIA studies associated with deep sea mining are carried out at CSIR NIO. Multidisciplinary studies to assess the baseline environmental conditions as well as the potential impact of mining are carried out at the institute. CSIR NIO also gathers information about the biodiversity associated with sediments from the seabed. CSIR NIO has a large repository of these polymetallic nodules collected during various expeditions carried out by the Institute. A meticulously developed, well-classified system of collected nodules is in place for the present and future generations of scientists and technologists. Here lies the natural treasure that expands the horizon of our understanding about deep sea mining.
The Indian Antarctic Program is a major initiative with distinct multi-institutional participation covering a wide range of research. The program has provided a platform to more than 2,000 personnel drawn from over 75 national institutes, universities, and organizations to conduct experiments in Antarctica.
The Indian Scientific Expedition to Antarctica is an amalgamation of various institutions, research organizations, and different universities. This is a truly national program wherein everyone chips in different disciplines, from atmospheric sciences to biological sciences to environmental sciences to geological sciences, glaciology, upper atmospheric, astronomy, also health and physiology sciences. So this encompasses the larger scientific program that we run, but the larger umbrella is the climate change program, which is the most important when we look at the largest refrigerator of this globe, that is Antarctica.
The first Indian scientific expedition to Antarctica was launched in 1981, and by 1984, India's first research station, Dakshin Gangotri, was built. Soon, a second base, Maitri, was established at Shimaka Oasis. While Maitri Station has supported several Indian scientists to carry out scientific studies, the commissioning of a third Indian research station, Bharati, in 2011 opened a new vista in Indian scientific research. The station caters to the entire scientific and logistic requirements within its state-of-the-art facilities.
It is a mini village, so we have to take from here, pin to big generator, everything we have to take from here. Once March is end, then we don't have access to them. So only we have to connect through teleconference or telephone, that way. Even any accident or anything happens, we cannot bring them back. So they have to be, they are really very harsh condition. They will be living there at least for more than 1 year. And in Arctic, our people will go in the March, and we will be able to stay at about 8 people, 8 scientists can stay in. Our station is in Svalbard, Himadri, and there our 8 scientists will be staying continuously in the Himadri, and they will do all discipline, whatever they glaciology or marine science or atmospheric science or biodiversity, all these things they will be working, and they will continue to work up to October or November. In winter they will be coming back. And Himalaya also, we start our expedition in the month of March, April, and it will go up to October. So these 3 polar regions, we maybe northern summer we go to Arctic and Himalaya, southern summer we go to Antarctica and the Southern Ocean. We hire the ship and go to what is called, we go to ship and then we conduct our scientific operation during the southern summer.
In recent times, the center has also set up a research station in the high altitude regions of the Himalayas for undertaking an integrated study on the health and fate of benchmark glaciers from the Chandra Basin in Lahaul and Spiti Valley of Himachal Pradesh.
The third pole region, which consists of Himalaya and Tibetan region, provides the water towers of the Asian region and livelihood of the people living in around this place. And the Himalayan glaciers are extremely important not only for as a water resource, as well as also the ecological systems in Himalaya, as well as the livelihood of the people. And NCOR would like to understand how these glaciers are behaving in a climate warming condition, and how they are presently responding, and what are the fate in future. So to understand that, NCOR is setting up a station in Himalaya and studying some of the major glaciers like Badashikri and Samudra Tapu, as well as recovering records of climate change within Himalaya.
So the first one, when you talk about polar science, so our main scientific objective is the teleconnection between the poles and tropics. What is this teleconnections? The energy, basically the hot sun, whatever is happening in the equatorial region, that is, it is heated up in the equator and it transported to poles. Now in the poles area, it is again ice melting and other things are happening. So we are trying to see, is there any linkage between the poles and tropics in the way of forecasting or understanding the monsoon. Suppose if some ice melt is happening this year in particular time, whether that is having some impact in the monsoon for the next year or that particular year. So that is what we are trying to understand. This is in the teleconnection. And also we are trying to reconstruct the past climate. Since this polar region, Antarctica and other places, it is a pristine area, we try to drill ice core as well as sediment core. From that we try to explore and understand what is the past history, maybe from 100 years, how was the earth temperature and climate was. And similarly from sediment core we go with the millions of years, how was the climate in the past. So once we know the past climate, then it is easy to understand what is the mechanism, then try to go for future predictions. So that is a secondary thing. And also the third thing is we are looking at the biodiversity. Biodiversity means what are the living things are happening in the polar regions, especially in Antarctica, Arctic and Himalaya, and how the diversity of biological things happening there, and of course how the life survives in such a cold climate, we try to understand. And also how the Southern Ocean ecosystem, maybe the ocean ecosystem is changing over the past so many years, and now what is the change is happening, and later on what will be happening in the future. So these are all some of the things we try to understand the polar regions.
Apart from in-situ studies spread across the Antarctic, Arctic and the Himalayas, the center also facilitates cryospheric research by offering state-of-the-art in-house research facilities. One such unique facility is the Ice Core Laboratory that has world-class facilities to preserve and study snow and ice cores from the polar regions. Several ice cores ranging to the depth of 100 meters have been retrieved from the East Antarctic region. Analysis of these ice cores has helped scientists reconstruct climatic records over the last 2,000 years. The Polar Remote Sensing Division at NCAOR has been developing indigenous geospatial applications for automatic extraction of polar geographical, topographical, and supraglacial information for deciphering climate change signals and also supporting safe logistic activities.
We are trying to do ice core. That means we go to Antarctica, we drill up to 100 meter or so ice core, and that ice core we bring it here. Once we bring it to the lab here and we cut into half of the ice core, half we preserve as an archive and remaining half we use for physics, chemistry and biology people, and they look at it. So physics people will look at it, what is the climate history for the 100 years or whatever the years past 100 years, and chemistry people will look at the what are the gaseous substances available over the 100 years, and biology people they look at how the bacteria and other things over the 100 years. So they look at the ice core. Then the sediment core. Some of the lakes in the Antarctica, we drill the sediment core, even few meters core will tell about the history about few millions of years. So we try to see how few millions of years back, how the earth evolves, and other history we are trying to understand that is going on. And of course bacterial and microbial biodiversity, what are the biodiversities happening in Antarctica, and how the glacier ice is changing, and also sea ice variations and southern ocean temperature, how it is changing. So all these things we are studying in Antarctica. And in Arctic we are doing marine science and glaciology and also biodiversity, then the what is called atmospheric science. So these are the broad area we are working. So in Antarctica every year we send about 100 people to Antarctica. Out of that 50 people will be staying continuously for 1 year or so, even winter, summer, every time they will be there. Remaining 50% people will come back. Our total polar science program is concentrated to climate change. Okay. Now why we are worried about climate change? There are three aspects in that. One is the sea level rise. So once the glacier melt either in Arctic or Antarctic or in Himalaya melt and it goes to the ocean, the sea level will increase. So even few centimeter increase in sea level, our coastal population will have a large stress. That means they have to be dislocated somewhere. So that is one of the major things. Then that is sea level rise. And the second thing is when the polar regions ice melts, the weather pattern will change. Now if you see that when the climate change is changing, the monsoon rainfall, it is changing dramatically. Though the normal rainfall, it is almost same, but the rainfall distribution in spatially as well as temporally, it is quite changing. Suppose average rainfall about 89, All India monsoon rainfall average about 89 centimeter per year during monsoon period. That more or less plus or minus 10, 89 centimeters we are getting the rainfall. But what is happening nowadays in the warming scenario, this rainfall is happening at one stroke, then next 10 days it will be no rain, and otherwise somewhere it is pouring and other place no rain. So this is what is happening nowadays. So we try to understand how this is changing and what is its connection between polar regions and these regions. We are trying to understand. We already established some relation between the Arctic and the monsoon pattern. Suppose if Arctic is ice, if no more ice is there, and then the monsoon wind pattern also will change. So that is really worrisome for us. So that is what we try to understand from these polar regions. Earlier we started with Antarctica, but now the changes happening in Antarctica, when compared to that, the changes is happening in Arctic and Himalaya become much more. So that is why we have to worry about what is happening in Arctic and Himalaya. In Arctic, what is happening is the sea ice is depleting very fast. Now it is full of ice. Now if it is ice is no more, maybe in another 30 years, Arctic will not have a ice in summer. It will be only ocean. And if it is in ocean, what happen? Many economic benefits are there. That is obviously, that means if Arctic ice melts, then you will have a ship routing will be changing much different route than the presently. Now somebody has to go from northern Asia to all three water will be connected. So it is passage will be very shorter, ship routing will be faster. And second thing is Arctic is having large oil reserves that has been untapped. So now this oil reserves, once ice is melted, now everybody is looking for that gas to extract, that is non-living resources to extract. And the third thing is there are once this ice is melt, the ecosystem will change. Now there is not much fish available there. Now lot of fisheries will be generated at that point. So there will be a lot of living resources like fishes. There are lot of non-living resources like minerals and gases, and also ship routing, and these are all economic benefits or economic impacts. But harnessing these economic benefits, there will be larger impact is climate change. So they will change the climate further. So when you change the climate, what is happening is there are two important things will happen. One is there is something called Arctic oscillation and Arctic amplification. That means whenever ice is melting, so your air temperature is increasing, then because of air temperature increasing, this albedo is decreasing, then ocean will absorb more heat, then it will give back again more heat to the atmosphere. So this is going on warming effect. So this warming effect will cause the stratospheric winds or the tropospheric winds, jet stream will be wobbling instead of going straight forward. So that will create lot of disturbances to the mid latitudes, then again to the monsoon regions. So we are more worried about the teleconnection between Arctic and poles. So this Arctic and teleconnection will change so that the monsoon pattern may change. That is number one. And second thing is, totally in the globe, the highest region warming trend, that means where the temperature is increasing fast, if you see that is in the Arctic region. But in the ocean where the temperature is warming, if you see, that is Indian Ocean. Himalaya is a third pole for us. One is Antarctic, then Arctic, then the third pole is a Himalaya. Himalaya is basically it is a source for 1.2 billion population, and roughly about 20% of the world population, it is feeding the water resources either for agriculture or for drinking, for everything. And it is also because of the climate change scenario, it is melting glaciers and there are extreme events are happening, and also food and water security. So these are the main concern for us. So we are trying to understand how much is melting and what is happening in these melt waters. So what are the different things happening under the climate change scenario. We are putting a station called HIMARS. So we have established in about 4.5 kilometer height in the Chandra basins, so in Himachal Pradesh. So our scientists to go there and study how the glacier is melting over the period. So that is what we are doing main reason.